Each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our GRID office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out pawbliss.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GRID Live Wrap-Up. I'm Cubby Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me is Ben Snyder and our Supercars expert, Adam Lemmery. Joe Samaniego has the night off. We have some excellent racing to talk about this weekend. We have NASCAR, Formula One, Formula E, and Supercars to recap and discuss, plus an update with the GRID ranking and WML as well. But we're going to start off with NASCAR. The Goodyear 400 from Darlington Racing, it was Throwback Weekend and Mother's Day, and a special Happy Mother's Day to everyone out there celebrating today. And we're also thinking about everyone who didn't have a mom or lost a child as well on this day. We all know that Mother's Day can be really difficult for some people, and we want to acknowledge your feelings of grief. And on behalf of everyone at GRID Network, we're thinking about you during this difficult time. And this is the first time since 2014 we've had an originally scheduled race at Darlington in the spring. It's a daytime race, not nighttime. And for the first time in a long time, had a caution-free stage 3. Martin Truex Jr. ended up taking the win. The only driver with multiple wins at the moment. He has 3 wins. Do you believe MTJ will end the regular season with the most wins, or is it still a little too soon to say?
I think it's still a little too soon to say for sure. I mean, we've seen at times drivers can go on streaks where they win 2 or 3 races in a row. So there's certainly plenty of time for another driver, particularly someone who's already got a win this season, to go on a streak like that, get hot at the right time, and go ahead and add a couple of wins to their name. But when you're the only driver with multiple wins and you've got 3 of them, I think if the question is who's going to end the regular season with the most wins, right now MTJ definitely has to be the favorite.
I'll completely agree with you, Ben. I believe it's still too early in the season we have a long way to go. Especially we got some really great tracks coming up on the schedule. So overall, Martin Truex Jr. right now is the driver to beat, but I think there will be some other drivers catching him as the season continues.
Yeah, right now I do think MTJ seems like he might be the one to beat, but we've seen so much parity throughout the season that I also believe that it's too soon to say who'll be on top at the end of the regular season. But right now, Martin Truex Jr. is definitely a front runner. And of course, his throwback paint scheme was to Furniture Row and Barney Visser, who he gave a shout out to after the race. And Regan Smith did win for the old Furniture Row racing team on Mother's Day with the Southern 500 in 2011. So here's what I know, Adam, you've been wanting us to ask this question all week long, and we're going to start with you. What was your favorite paint scheme during Throwback Weekend and why?
One of my favorite paint schemes had to have been Chase Elliott's Hooters Chevrolet Camaro. I can remember when the late great Alan Kulwicki drove that scheme. He ran the car in 1992. He was at the time his car was named the Underbird, and he was the last NASCAR driver as an independent to win the NASCAR Cup Championship. He was in a tight battle all season long. So to see Chase Elliott run that scheme brought back a lot of good memories for me.
I think I have to go with the John Andretti throwback we saw with Eric Jones and Richard Petty Motorsports. Just a beautiful tribute to Andretti, and like seeing the Check It for Andretti message on the car as well. I know we're still sad that John Andretti passed away and lost his battle with cancer, but a great tribute to him. And throwback to 1999, the year I was born, getting to see that paint scheme again brought back some good memories for a lot of NASCAR fans, I'm sure. So I'm going to go with Eric Jones and make that my favorite.
Well, for me, I didn't particularly have a favorite throwback paint scheme this year. One that in the Cup Series, but I will say really effort by Spire Motorsports and Cora LaJoy with that beautiful number 7, throwing it back to Alan Kulwicki. Thought that was a really beautiful paint scheme, and certainly one of the ones I thought that stood out. And two surprises in today's race finished in the top 10. Roush Fenway Racing, Chris Buescher and Ryan Newman, 9th and 10th. And Stewart Haas Racing, up and down day for them. They had 2 wrecked vehicles with Eric Almirola and Cole Custer crashing hard in the inside wall on the backstretch. And overall throughout the race, saw a lot of great racing, cars on the edge, slipping and sliding. And for the first time in a while, we had the low downforce, high horsepower package here at Darlington Raceway. And so we're going to start off with you, Ben, here. How did the high horsepower, low downforce package change the character of the race?
It let our drivers showcase their skill again. That's the main thing. I love seeing Martin Truex Jr. in particular, who had the dominant car of the day, ended up winning the race, but was just on the razor's edge of the wall for so many laps today. And, I still remember the initial press conference in 2019, right before NASCAR went to the 550 horsepower package at a lot of these tracks. And Kyle Busch telling the media, anybody could go out there right now and run wide open. You could probably do it. So it was good for me to see high horsepower, low downforce package again. I think you saw some fans on Twitter taking screenshots of the intervals and the timing and scoring and saying, it looks no different. What are you talking about? But I think if you're just judging the quality of racing based off the timing and scoring in the intervals, you're doing it completely wrong. You have to look at the battles all throughout the field, and that's something that I know I've been very active on Twitter over the last hour and a half talking about the Fox broadcast. I think that's one of many things that they could be doing better, is showing the battles all up and down the field, in particular the second half. I don't think maybe they did it. I don't know. Maybe I just missed it, but you've got to show us who's running from 21st on back as well. I like the ticker on the left side of the screen, the vertical ticker that shows us more drivers at any given moment, but you've got to rotate through 11th through 20th, 21st through 30th, and 31st on back, and so on every so often. So, I think if you were there in particular, I saw a lot of people on Twitter and on social media saying that being at the racetrack, they could tell there was a difference. They could tell the drivers were working harder than they have in comparing races that use the 550 horsepower package. So I thought it was a very good race based on certainly by the standards, the low bar set by the low horsepower, high downforce package. I think it wasn't perfect, but not every race is going to be a nail biter classic with a great finish. So I think it was a great race today.
As a NASCAR fan, I fully enjoyed. It was like a classic NASCAR race. You had battles up and down the field all day long, and to see Kyle Larson come back from over a 10-second gap to almost capture the win today, that was really cool to see. I know the fans really enjoyed it. Like I said, I loved it, and hopefully NASCAR brings back this package sometime again this year.
Oh yes, Adam. Well, we'll definitely see this package back later this year at numerous locations. And overall, I can't really see how anyone would say that this race was really bad, because I thought it was terrific in my opinion. It had everything. A lot of, you could hear the throttle control, which was really nice to hear that. Back again at Darlington, the drivers managing the tires, ripping the fence, cars on the edge. Even when the Fox cameras were panning through the field, you could see the drivers working at the wheel, and that was also really nice to see. And I feel like that all of these drivers had to truly work for this one, and overall just really a good show. And next weekend we're going to be going to Dover, the Monster Mile, a track where Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, and Team Penske have all found a lot of success in the past. How likely is it that the winner of Dover is going to be from one of those 3 teams?
I believe the winner will come from one of those 3 teams. A lot of the current drivers have had a lot of success there. It will be a homecoming for Martin Truex Jr. because He is from New Jersey. It's the closest that NASCAR goes to his home state, other than New Hampshire. So I believe Martin Truex Jr. will be one of the top contenders next weekend when NASCAR goes to the Monster Mile.
Yeah, coming to my backyard here in Delaware. But I think absolutely it's got to come from one of those three teams. I think there's probably a 95% chance, I'd say. When you look at this season so far, the only winner that hasn't come from those teams is Michael McDowell at the very first race of Daytona 500 with Front Row Motorsports. So, Kobe, like you said, we saw some strong runs from Roush today, given where they've been the last couple of seasons. Stewart-Haas looked like, even though two of their drivers had the accidents today, Chase Briscoe finally had a solid run. So, you could maybe see Stewart-Haas getting up there in the mix again. But I think if you have to talk about favorites, the big three, I know we use that term maybe too much in this sport, but I think those three teams right now are definitely the favorites.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Ben, especially with 95% chance that the winner is going to come from one of those three teams. And I'm going to make an early prediction, and all of our viewers out there can guess who my pick of winner is going to be next week at Dover. I already have my pick of winner set, but I think my pick of winner is going to come from Hendrick Motorsports. They came up just short today to Martin Truex Jr. and Joe Gibbs Racing, but I think next weekend at Dover is going to be a Hendrick weekend. And going back to a topic we discussed yesterday on the Grid Live pre-race show, Joe, Adam, and we talked about the situation that happened on Twitter between Sheldon Creed and Camping World CEO Marcus Lemonis, and the defending Truck Series champion Creed believed that his truck was worth more than the $15,000 Lemonis offered to sponsor his truck. All of us have said our opinion on this subject, but Ben, you weren't on the program yesterday, so we're going to give you an opportunity to chime in. What's your overall take on this situation?
Kobe, there are very few issues in this world where I don't try to at least see both sides of the problem. When we're having a debate, I can 99 times out of 100 at least understand why certain people would come to the conclusion, as strongly as I may feel about my own opinion and which side that I'm on, I understand at least where the opposition is coming from. And this is no exception here. When you have somebody like Marcus Lemonis, who I know I've repeatedly praised many times on social media, on this program right here and everywhere else, when you have him being this generous with his sponsorship and doing things to help our teams and ultimately help our sport, I think that's something to praise him for and to be thankful for. Now, in the case of Sheldon Creed individually, Sheldon Creed and GMS Racing also have their own right to do business how they see fit. If it were me, I still think that $15,000 with, and this is the part that I think people we're kind of forgetting. Lemonis is offering $100,000 to any team that wins a truck race in the Camping World Truck. So, Sheldon Creed going out and winning the race, you could say if they had Camping World on the car, that would have been $100,000 for GMS Racing. And, that's something that they might have to consider thinking about. I think a $15,000 sponsorship with six-figure incentives is, to me at least, I'm not an economic or business expert here, but that seems better than a blank truck to me. So I think when Nick Bromberg tweeted that it was public vulturing, to offer $15,000, I thought that was a little unfair. I think Tommy Joe Martins just recently last night, I only saw it this morning. I think it was last night though. He brought up another good point and added to the perspective here. Is Marcus Lemonis being too cheap and paying too little for sponsorship, or is GMS Racing operating in a budget that's too expensive for the Truck Series, given the limited prize budget that the series offers, kind of where the series is financially right now? Is GMS spending too much? And you can argue that they have to be a team that competes for wins and championships. It's not a perfect situation, but ultimately, I just don't understand why Lemonis is getting so much flack on social media now. And people have talked about, people go back to the vulturing issue and everything, deals falling through or whatnot. I think there was a tweet from somebody that was deleted saying that they had a handshake deal with Lemonis, put Camping World on the car. He said they were going to do it, and then it never happened. You know, I watch a lot of Shark Tank. You know, I'm a big fan of game shows and reality shows. I think most people know that. I think people don't realize that a lot of times on Shark Tank, you know, I think Kevin O'Leary's even said like 20% of the deals that you see on TV never actually go through. Because when you're talking about tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, as you are here with Camping World and with Marcus Lemonis and these race teams, you know, anybody can send a tweet out. I could tweet out tomorrow that I'm going to give $1 million to somebody. You know, that doesn't make it accurate. So when you're dealing with that much money, I think it's important to recognize that you have to see something more official than a tweet. You have to put pen to paper and all that good stuff. So, you know, long story short, I still think what Lemonis is doing is great. I think the Truck Series arguably wouldn't. I'm only half joking when I say I don't know that it would exist today without all the money and all the resources that he's poured into it over the last decade and a half. You know, so I haven't seen anything to make me turn on him yet. You know, I think you could argue maybe he shouldn't have made the numbers public. You know, he's a smart businessman. I know he's probably got his reasons that I can't even think of, but you know, I didn't see anything this weekend that's going to make me turn on him.
And I do think you bring up a good point, Ben, when you say it's really important for like when situations like this arise, we have to be able to look at it from both sides and be unbiased about it, even if we do feel a certain way or the other, whether you're like, yeah, Sheldon Creed, stand your ground, you're the defending champion and you should know your worth, you should know that you and your organization is worth more than $15,000, or on the other hand, be like, why is Marcus Lemonis, you know, becoming a villain on Twitter, and just one day when he's sponsoring the series and he's throwing out a lot of money for these competitors, and I'm sure the $15,000 are very helpful for some of the smaller teams in the garage who otherwise would just show up with a blank truck and is just not good for their business at all. But overall, if this criticism of Marcus Lemonis is, you know, to increase over time, what's gonna happen if he feels like he's become a villain, and then all of a sudden he's like, since these people don't really like me over here anymore, why should I continue supporting the series? And then could we potentially see Marcus Lemonis pull out of NASCAR altogether? I'm not really sure if that would happen, but it's certainly an interesting situation that will continue following here at Grid Network.
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned, like you mentioned, both sides of the perspective of everything. You know, people said that if GMS takes $15,000 for Marcus Lemonis for a primary sponsorship, you could maybe have another company come up to GMS and say, well, Lemonis only paid $15K, so, you know, why should we have to pay any more? So I think if there's one mistake Lemonis made, and again, like I said, I'm no business expert by any means. I'm sure he has his reasons, and I know he's infinitely smarter than me in his field. You know, so I don't want to come off as arrogant here in any sense of the word, but you know, if there was one thing that I would have done differently if I were in his shoes, maybe I wouldn't have made the numbers public, maybe made a public offer saying like, hey, if you are unsponsored this weekend, you know, contact me and let's make a deal or something like that. But, you know, I think, like I said, I understand both sides of it. It's not a perfect situation, but I don't see how Lemonis is the villain here. I haven't seen anything to make me think that yet. So as we transition here, I guess we can talk about the Formula One race this morning. I know yesterday you guys on a Grid Live pre-race talked about the importance of a fast teammate. And again, like we've seen in recent years, you know, you had Verstappen and the two Mercedes up front, but Sergio Perez and the second Red Bull nowhere in sight. And Hamilton was able to utilize a two-stop strategy to go on and win the race. And once again, extending the record, I think, for most times the same three drivers have been on the podium. Hamilton on the top step, with Verstappen in second and Bottas in P3. So judging by wins now, Hamilton now has a 3-1 advantage over Verstappen. So Kobe, we'll start with you. Does this give Lewis and Mercedes extra breathing room with an expanded lead?
Yes, certainly. I think it gives them a little breathing room. It seems like Mercedes slightly has an edge over Red Bull at the moment, but as we've seen in Formula One, things can change quickly, and I don't think Mercedes and Hamilton should get too comfortable yet, because I do think that the Red Bull is still really close in performance to Mercedes, and if Hamilton somehow has a bad day, retires from a race anytime soon, I don't really see that happening. But who knows what's going to happen? If something bad happens with Hamilton during the race, Red Bull and Verstappen can definitely capitalize on that mistake and try to close the gap, because I do think that we could still see back and forth throughout the season. I don't think Hamilton's advantage is going to be 3-1 for very long.
I agree with you, Kobe. Even though it's early in the season, right now you're gonna have to find a way to beat the Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton for the F1 championship. The two pit stop strategy worked really good in his favor today, and Verstappen had a really big lead. But Sir Lewis Hamilton, he drove his heart out to come back and pass him with only a few laps to go. Overall, for me, I enjoyed the race. And overall, right now, you're gonna have to find a way to beat Sir Lewis Hamilton and the Mercedes.
Yeah, no, I don't like making anybody who knows me knows I don't like making stick and ball sports comparisons. I know there's a joke about 3-1 leads and stick and ball sports not being as safe as they used to be, but obviously we have a lot more than just 7 races in the Formula One season. So certainly still time for Verstappen and Red Bull to make a charge for a championship. But Hamilton getting his 100th pole, his 98th race win, I think, if there is a clear favorite emerging, even going into the season, I think if there was any favorite, it was obviously going to be him. So I know and speaking of Red Bull, talking about Sergio Perez, started 8th, finishing 5th, and that's kind of been right on par with the so-called cursed second Red Bull seat. Not really much of a factor in the race, and that didn't really help Red Bull. Had Perez been in the top 4, it's very doubtful Mercedes pulls Hamilton in for a second pit stop due to the extra traffic, and Red Bull would have had the luxury of having a second car up there fighting for the front. So their strategy not responding to Hamilton's second stop and essentially costing them the race win. Does that make this victory slipping by sting any more for Red Bull?
Oh, yeah. If Lewis Hamilton wouldn't have had that second stop, I believe Red Bull would have found a way to see the win in Spain. Max Verstappen looked really dominant all day long. But that second stop that Lewis Hamilton had, that proved to be the victory stop. It stung him a lot, and I believe that overall, I don't think it'll come back to bite him as the season continues. But if I were Sergio Perez, I would start to find a way to at least start in the top 10 at each event as the season continues.
Yes, and I do think that this win stinks for Red Bull, because it's always frustrating when you feel like you have this race won, and you're like, it's gonna be my day, and then unfortunately it didn't go as planned. And yes, it's super unfortunate for Red Bull and Max Verstappen not being able to pull off the win today, and got outsmarted by Mercedes and Hamilton this time around. But hey, it's early in the season; they're still in the fight. They can reset, get ready for what is the biggest race of the season coming up next, the Monaco Grand Prix, because I'm sure Red Bull would definitely love to be on the top step of the podium on the streets of Monte Carlo.
Yes, and I believe we have a question from the chat room, and it looks like it's fairly simple. Who is your driver of the day? So I guess I'll go first, and forgive me for taking the easy one, but I think it has to be Lewis Hamilton. Having fallen behind at the start, and then with just a handful of laps left, Mercedes, they executed the strategy brilliantly, and I don't know, they look unbeatable. You cannot beat these guys right now. So I'm going to go with Lewis.
My driver of the day has to be Martin Truex Jr. He had the dominant car at Darlington all day long. Kyle Larson almost came through, but it was MTJ's race to lose. But he came through and took the victory on this Mother's Day Sunday.
Yeah. For me, sticking with the Formula One race, I agree with Ben. It definitely has to be Lewis Hamilton. I don't really have much to add. He basically summed up everything that I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, we've talked about it many times in the show, just the dominance of Mercedes in this turbo hybrid era and continuing this season. And the next race weekend coming up, Monaco, May 20th through the 23rd. First time in a while that it doesn't fall on the same day as the Indianapolis 500 and the Coke 600, but still the most prestigious race of the year for Formula One. Qualifying very important because of how difficult it is to overtake on that circuit. So is Mercedes, or are Mercedes now the clear favorites heading into Monaco?
Without a doubt, Mercedes is definitely the clear favorite heading into Monaco. Lewis Hamilton won today, which is just about every single weekend on the Formula One calendar, it seems. So I know Mercedes is going to be strong. We need a good qualifying effort from Valtteri Bottas. We know Max is going to be up there as well. See if Sergio Perez can try to reel in the second Red Bull car there. And I do think it's going to be a battle between Mercedes and Red Bull on the streets of Monte Carlo. But it's going to be interesting to watch them qualify and see if who's going to be on pole, the Mercedes or the Red Bull, and strategy is going to be key as well, because this track is really hard for these larger Formula One cars to pass.
Right now, you're going to have to beat Sir Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes to capture the Formula One world title. They look really dominant today, and right now, y'all have talked about it already. So overall, it's going to be interesting when Formula One races on the streets in the Principality of Monte Carlo in Monaco in just a few weeks' time.
And switching gears to supercars for the first time this season, Shane van Gisbergen did not win a race at all during the weekend. Still top 10 finishes all weekend, including second in the final race, and with the big points lead, consistency might be a significant advantage for him. We had 3 different winners. Shane is the only driver with that 100% finish rate in the top 10. Is Shane in complete control and running a strategy to finish the race in the top 10 and not pushing too hard for the wins right now?
Yeah, Shane van Gisbergen. Before I answer your question, Kobe, I want to give a special birthday shout out to the Repco Supercar points leader, Shane van Gisbergen. His birthday was yesterday in Australia, here today. So overall, he had a really good weekend at the Ben Motorsports Park, and his consistent finishes, I believe that will be an advantage to him as the season continues.
And yes, with Shane's consistency, he'll lead in the Supercars points, and he's also leading the Supercars grid rating here at Grid Network, and he will lead heading into the next race weekend. And Sebastian Ogier now 0.4 behind Shane van Gisbergen. The next race for the Supercars is on Memorial Day weekend as well, with the Winston Super Sprint. Adam, will the Shell Power Dick Johnson Racing Team start contending for wins each weekend again, or they still have some room to improve? I'm sure Antoine De Pasquale was really excited by his big result this weekend.
When it comes to the Dick Johnson cars, they will start to contend for wins. Anton De Pasquale had 2 back-to-back poles. I wouldn't be surprised if they start hunting for wins as the season continues.
Yes, and I think I saw Scott McLaughlin, who's now racing here in the United States with Team Penske's IndyCar program. He was saying that his old supercar team, that everybody doubted them or something close to that, and that the team just need to give them time, since this is a new era for Dick Johnson Racing, since Team Penske exited the Supercars Series, and with Will Davis and Antoine De Pasquale, with De Pasquale getting a win this weekend, they're going to try to get one for Will as well here soon. I really do think that this team is going to start being more competitive. They're going to find their footing once again and maybe become true contenders week in and week out.
All right, well, shifting gears now to Formula E. Yesterday we had Jack from Formula E Zone join us for Grid Live, recapping the Formula E race. I've got to say, by far, one of the most entertaining races of the weekend. Some people, I'm sure, would probably say the most exciting race we saw this weekend. And one of the most unpredictable, exciting races, certainly by Monaco standards, probably because of the on-track passing and racing and overtaking we saw, because of course in Formula One, Monaco is very difficult to overtake on just because of how narrow the circuit is, how fast the Formula One cars are. But Formula E, we saw a lot of overtakes, and the great part about the race was that it all played out naturally. It wasn't affected by rain, not a lot of wrecks, which forced safety cars. There was just a lot of on-track passing and battles, and it came down right to the last lap for the win. So Adam, we'll start with you. Was Formula E the best race of the weekend?
Oh, yeah. This Formula E race, to me, was one of the greatest Formula E races I've ever watched in my time. Like we said yesterday, it had everything. Great passing, great on track with all the cars. And to me, this race will go down as one of the greatest Formula E races in history. It's going to be hard to top the performance that everybody had around the streets of Monte Carlo in Monaco.
Yes, there was certainly a lot of great racing this weekend. Yeah, for all the way from Monaco down under the Supercars to Darlington in the great state of South Carolina. But I have to say, hands down, Formula E was certainly the best race of the weekend. It was really exciting to see an entertaining race on the streets of Monte Carlo. I think Ben said it best when he said by Monaco's standards, because typically, when it comes to the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix, there we really enjoy those races mostly because of the history that Monaco has and the beautiful scenery around the circuit. But Formula E, thanks hand down, great, best show of the weekend. And considering all of the things that have gone wrong in Formula E leading up to the Monaco E-Prix, this was definitely the race they needed, an exciting show, no controversies, and just how they like it.
Yeah, I think notorious was the word I was looking for there. Monaco being notorious for not providing a lot of overtaking opportunities in Formula One. And I don't know, maybe that's something that Formula One can learn from Formula E going forward, that faster cars isn't necessarily the answer to providing a better show. But yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, I didn't get to catch much of the race live, but just the race highlights that were posted on social media and on YouTube, just couldn't believe how many overtakes we were seeing, and a great finish to the race too. So I think it's definitely got to be a smart decision on the part of Formula E and Monaco to run the full layout. I don't know if that helps, but definitely one of the best Formula E races we've seen in the short history of that championship.
And we're almost out of time for today, but you know what that means? It's time for our grid one shining moment of the weekend. And so we're going to start off with Adam. So what is your grid one shining moment that stood out to you this weekend?
Well, that's easy for me. It has to be NASCAR's Throwback weekend. For the fans that may not know this, I started watching NASCAR when some of those paint schemes were on the cars of names like Cale Yarborough, Neil Bonnet, Darrell Waltrip, Bill Elliott. It brought back a lot of memories for me. As a child growing up in cold, wintry New Hampshire on a Sunday afternoon, watching some of those drivers compete. And I'm hoping more motorsport series do this down the road.
I think I've got to go with Dale Jr. and getting to take his father's 1984 Chevrolet Nova out for the pace laps at Darlington. I know if you listen to his podcast, he reacquired that car that his father, Dale Sr., raced a couple of years ago now, has been working on restoring it, finally has it done, and got the opportunity to showcase that this weekend at Darlington. But I have to say, if you saw on Twitter, I've even had a tweet, I screenshotted Mike Davis's tweet about the TV coverage and missed opportunity by Fox Sports and today as well with the show cars of Bill Elliott and the Wood brothers. It would have added so much, I think, to the Throwback weekend coverage if we had been able to actually see those demonstration laps happen. And Dale Jr.'s in particular, the connection that he had with his father and getting that car restored. Great to see the highlights on social media. I just wish the folks watching on TV could have seen it as well.
Yes, it would have been nice to see all of that history on the track on live television. But I guess it was only important enough for the people sitting at the track to see it. But in my great one shining moment for the weekend has got to be William Byron, who scored his 10th straight top 10 finish this weekend at Darlington, and he's the first Hendrick Motorsports driver to do this since 2007. When Jeff Gordon did the same thing in the year 2007, Jeff Gordon had a total of 30 top 10 finishes. So William Byron right now is one of the most consistent drivers in NASCAR. And also we know the sad news we got earlier during the week that William Byron's mother has a brain tumor, and she's in the process of getting all of that taken care of. So, and I know Mother's Day weekend, and knowing your mother is going through such a serious situation like this, I thought William Byron would have an excellent run today and try to get a win for his mother during a really difficult time for his family. But another top 10 finish, I think that's a really good day for William Byron. And I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone at the GRID Network here when I say we're continuing to think about William Byron's mom during this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking of the Byron family this weekend. And that's going to be our show for this week. So be sure to like and subscribe to the GRID Network right here on YouTube. Follow us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Check out our Patreon page and invest in GRID Network. We want to be on the air long term. We appreciate Colin, our Patreon supporter, for supporting us for many months now. And also consider getting some goodies for your furry friend at Poblis, a proud sponsor of the GRID Network. For Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, Adam Lemery, our Supercars expert, I'm Ben Schnutter. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you all next time.
Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Poblis. Poblis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our GRID office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out poblis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.